MetaFacts Legends, History Ranked, Episode 1. Top 10 Ideologies that changed and scarred human history. What if I told you there is one idea that started in a library, spread through whispers in taverns, exploded into revolutions, ruled over 2 billion people, and caused more deaths than almost any disease in modern history? An idea that inspired farmers to pick up rifles, poets to become generals, and professors to become enemies of the state. And yet to this day, some still carry portraits of its founders with the same reverence as saints. In this first episode of MetaFacts Legends, History Ranked, we are counting down the 10 most powerful ideologies in human history. Some brought hope, others brought horror, and the top 2 will likely surprise you more than any of the rest. Stay with us to the end. This is number 10, Communism. Not just a word, but an era, a worldview, and for many, a warning. Let us begin where many revolutions are born, in poverty, in frustration, and in the promise of a better world that never quite arrives. It was the 19th century. Europe was buzzing with machines, smoke, and inequality. The Industrial Revolution had created vast fortunes for factory owners and businessmen. But for the rest, the workers, it meant endless shifts, cramped tenements, and lungs filled with soot. Children worked beside their parents. Protesting meant losing your job. Or worse, facing police violence. The gap between rich and poor was no longer just economic. It was moral. And to some, it was intolerable. Into this reality walked Karl Marx, a German philosopher with the beard of a prophet and the financial problems of a failed novelist. In 1848, alongside Friedrich Engels, a wealthy factory owner's son who had grown disillusioned with capitalism, Marx published a short booklet that would go on to change the world. The Communist Manifesto. It began with a sentence that echoed like thunder through the capitals of Europe. A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism. The central argument was simple, bold, and explosive, that all of human history is the story of class struggle, that every society, from ancient empires to modern cities, has been defined by the fight between oppressors and the oppressed, and that soon, workers would rise up, overthrow their masters, seize the factories, and build a new society, classless, stateless, without money or private property. A workers' paradise. To quote Marx again, "Workers of the world, unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains." At first, few paid attention. Marx died in poverty, mostly ignored outside radical intellectual circles. But ideas are like seeds. They do not always grow immediately. Sometimes, they lie dormant until a storm arrives. That storm came in 1917. Russia, a land ruled by czars, drained by war, and plagued by famine. Tsar Nicholas II had sent millions to die in World War I. Back home, his people had little bread and even less hope. And in the middle of this chaos came a man with a vision and a plan. Vladimir Lenin. Lenin had spent years in exile reading Marx, organizing cells, and plotting revolution. He believed the time had come. In October 1917, Lenin and his Bolsheviks overthrew the provisional government in Petrograd. Russia became the world's first communist state. Lenin did not hesitate. Land was seized from the nobility. Factories were placed under state control. Banks were nationalized. Religion was suppressed. Enemies were executed or sent to labor camps. A single party took total control, promising to build socialism and then communism in stages. To the outside world, this was radical. To some, terrifying. To many, inspiring. By 1922, the Soviet Union was born. A vast new country stretching across more than 20 million square kilometers and uniting over 150 ethnic groups. It was now a nuclear power in the making, and the beacon for radicals around the world. Lenin died in 1924. In his place rose Joseph Stalin, a man who would transform communism into something far more brutal. But that is a story for another episode. Now, we turn to China. It was 1949. China had suffered a century of foreign domination. civil war, and internal collapse. But at last, the Chinese Communist Party had triumphed. Its leader, Mao Zedong, stood atop the gate of heavenly peace and declared the founding of the People's Republic of China. Mao promised to redistribute land, educate the poor, and modernize the country. He would soon go much further. In 1958, he launched the Great Leap Forward. The plan was to transform China from a peasant economy into an industrial superpower. But instead of building real factories, millions of peasants were told to smelt iron in backyard furnaces. Farmland was collectivized, harvests were over-reported, and food disappeared. Between 1958 and 1962, over 30 million people starved to death. It was the single deadliest famine not caused by war in human history. In 1966, Mao launched the Cultural Revolution. He called on young people to rise up and purge society of bourgeois elements. Schools closed, professors were beaten, ancient temples were destroyed, families turned against each other, millions were imprisoned, tortured, or killed. And yet, Mao remains a national figure. His portrait still hangs in Tiananmen Square. His legacy is taught, his books are sold, and his name is remembered. For better or worse, communism had now spread far beyond Europe and Asia. It took hold in Cuba, in North Korea, in Cambodia, in Ethiopia, in Angola. It ruled more than 30 countries and shaped the daily lives of over 1.5 billion people. In Southeast Asia, the story found a different voice. A poet turned soldier, a man who signed his letters only as Nguyen Ai Quoc, the patriot. Later known to the world as Ho Chi Minh. To the French, he was a troublemaker. To the Americans, a communist. But to millions of Vietnamese, he was Uncle Ho. Ho Chi Minh studied in Paris. He read Lenin, met with international radicals, and decided that communism could be the vehicle to end colonial rule. He founded the Vietnamese Communist Party and led a decades-long war, first against France, then against the United States. The Battle of Dien Bien Phu in 1954 shattered French control. The Tet Offensive in 1968 shocked the American public, and in 1975, Saigon fell. Vietnam was unified under communist rule. Today, Vietnam still follows one-party rule, yet it has embraced market reforms, just as China did, a strange blend of socialism and capitalism, a paradox that confuses many but seems to work, for now. Let us look at the numbers. By the late 1980s, communism had ruled over 30 countries. More than 1 in 3 humans lived under communist governments. These nations controlled roughly half of the world's nuclear weapons. But the cost was staggering, according to estimates from the Black Book of Communism and other sources. The death toll includes 20 million in the Soviet Union, 45 to 65 million in China, 1.7 million under the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia, up to 3 million in North Korea, and millions more in Eastern Europe, Ethiopia, and elsewhere. The total deaths attributable to communist regimes during the 20th century range from 70 to 100 million. Of course, not every death was deliberate. Famines, wars, forced migrations, these were side effects. But when an idea leads to so much human loss, it must be examined. Still, communism also brought education, healthcare, land reform, and national pride to many parts of the world. It challenged Western imperialism. It inspired literature, cinema, art, and architecture. Its propaganda posters remain iconic. Its slogans still echo. It inspired both heroes and villains. It gave hope to the poor and fear to the powerful. It demanded sacrifice and promised paradise. And as Marx once wrote, philosophers have only interpreted the world. The point, however, is to change it. Communism tried to change it, and it did, forever. Today, Marx's dream of a stateless, classless world remains unfulfilled, but the symbols, the speeches, the red stars and the raised fists, they endure. The idea is not gone. It lives on university walls, in street protests, in nostalgic songs and revisionist books. Whether you see it as a vision of justice or a warning from history, One thing is certain, communism is no footnote. It is a chapter, a bloody, brilliant, and deeply human chapter. This is only the beginning of our countdown. There are still 9 ideologies to go. Some brought peace, others brought chaos, and at least one may be influencing your decisions right now, without you even knowing it. At MetaFacts Legends, we rank ideas, but we also explore them. Which part of communism do you want us to dive deeper into? Mao's famine, Ho Chi Minh's letters to Truman, Lenin's exile, Marx's failures as a journalist. Let us know in the comments. Your voice helps shape the next episode. And if you want to explore the original speeches, books, and documents that shape this ideology, check the description. We have curated a collection you can read yourself. Support MetaFacts Legends by subscribing, sharing, or donating if you believe in cinematic storytelling and bold history. This was number 10, Communism, and we are just getting started.